to Tuesday. So today we're going to work through the Tuesday daily checklist. So we're starting at page 3 with our daily warm-up and working our way through there. We're also going to go over the homework that you were supposed to do last night, page 15. And we're going to get our first read in today in, special effects. So let's get started. All right, page 3 is about Jackie Robinson. So some of you probably already know about Jackie Robinson, but let's read and see what they have to say. Though he was born in Cairo, Georgia in 1919, Jackie Robinson grew up in Los Angeles, California. Although African American athletes were not accepted in all sports leagues at this time, Jackie's life would prove that athletes should be judged by their abilities and not by the color of their skin. Jackie would prove to be a star athlete. He was a star in not just one sport, but 4. He ran track and played basketball, football, and baseball. Jackie began playing professional baseball in the Negro American Baseball League. But after 2 years, he joined the Brooklyn Dodgers. No other African American had ever been allowed to play in the major leagues. Not everyone thought an African American person should play in the major leagues. The fans and some of the players treated Jackie very poorly. They were trying to get him to leave the league. The opposite happened. Jackie only worked harder and played harder. He managed to win the Rookie of the Year award and helped the Dodgers win the pennant. In 1949, he had the best batting average in the league and won the Most Valuable Player award. Jackie continued to work hard and improve. He was also an excellent fielder and base runner. In the 10 years that Jackie played for the Dodgers, they won the pennant 6 times and the World Series championship once. In 1962, Jackie Robinson was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So you can see that there's some space on the side, and if there's space on the side, you should definitely use it. So this whole paragraph, right, we've got born 1919, 4 sports, Brooklyn Dodgers, fans and players were jerks. If you saw the movie 42, you'll know what that is. But Jackie still did well, right? He made the whole team better. Obviously, since they got so many awards. So where would you read to find out about Jackie's experiences playing for the Dodgers? Well, it looks like it starts, well, not really. It just says he joins here. Here's when he was playing for the Dodgers, and here's when he was playing for the Dodgers. So we're going to go with the second and third paragraphs. The author probably wrote this passage to inform the reader of the civil rights for all Americans. Definitely not. Inform the reader about Jackie's time as a batter. Well, talked about batting, but not just that. Inform the reader about Jackie's great accomplishments, or portray Jackie's commitment to helping others learn to play baseball. That's not even in there. It must be C. What does the word average mean in the passage? So this is in the second paragraph, best batting average. Anybody who's into baseball knows that this is a baseball statistic, that the batting average tells you how many times you're getting hits. So it's going to be a percentage. And then not a fact. So make sure you're looking for not a fact. He was successful because of hard work and determination. Seems right. Let the fans and other players run him out of baseball. No, sir. When they were acting crazy, he just kept on doing his best. All right, so warm-up is over. Let's head for language. Okay, back on prepositions. Remember that preposition tells direction, time, or gives details. So this one is actually asking you to add a preposition. You do not need to rewrite the sentence. That's just silly. I usually blank the floor when I watch TV. Well, you can't lie under the floor or above it, so you should probably lie on the floor. When I get hungry, I get a snack, blank the refrigerator. So I would say from the refrigerator. Probably not around the refrigerator or near the refrigerator. We have several movies stored blank the television. If you're old like me, you probably had your movies under the television, but you could have a floating shelf that has it above the television or even around the television. Those would all be prepositions. I would rather see a movie blank the theater. So your choices are inside or outside the theater. I would rather see a movie inside the theater. The big screen and smell of popcorn create a memorable experience. All right, you're going to add a prepositional phrase of your own to each sentence. Again, you don't have to rewrite the sentence. Let's make that a cartoon what? A cartoon about dogs. I'll get the paper and markers to draw. You draw the scenes in pencil and I'll color them in with markers. What colors shall we use for the fur? Dad will hang this cartoon on the refrigerator. So these prepositions are giving more information. Let's make a cartoon, or let's make Dad a cartoon as a complete sentence, but when you say about dogs or about cats or about hunting or fishing, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I hadn't zoomed down on that one. You can do anything. You can add those details, give facts and information, and generally make it more interesting to read and easier to understand. It is time for antonyms or opposites. So, the opposite of background is actually foreground, or things that are in the front. So there's actually a word for that in art and apparently in theater. So the foreground or the front. There is not an opposite of landscape. You know, a cityscape would be something that's not outside, or an urban scape, but because the landscape is a noun, it doesn't actually have an antonym. The opposite of miniature is something that's bigger in size, so it could be zoomed in, blown up, magnified. Anything that is larger than life. Prehistoric. I don't know that there's an antonym for prehistoric, something that's not ancient, so maybe to date? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that since prehistoric is a description, prehistoric, oh no, futuristic. So it's time in the future. Futuristic would be the opposite of prehistoric. Something that's taking place after recorded time, being in the future or futuristic. And reassembled, disassembled, deassembled, disassembled. If you take it apart. Destroyed. Pretty much anything that means to take apart is going to be your antonym for reassembled. Okay. Let's take a look at the homework from last night, page 15. Prefixes. This is great because we just talked about reassembled and prehistoric, which both have prefixes on them. So this way we can talk about, well, how do we understand that and what does it really mean? So prefix is added at the beginning of the word, and they mean these things. So re means to do over, and pre means before. And both of them come from Latin. So let's read the passage. On our first trip to Los Angeles, we toured a special effects studio. In one room, the workers had just reassembled a landscape scene with prehistoric animals. Huge, reptile-like birds with feathers flew in the background. In the other room, we saw a miniature village. Tiny houses were placed among even tinier bushes and trees. Next, we visited the basement. We heard explosions going off. We were told that technicians were testing small explosive devices and that we should be careful. Down the hall, we saw a room full of what looked like snow and ice. It was going to be used as an Arctic landscape with below zero temperatures. But at the end of the afternoon, we were weary but eager to redo the tour soon. We felt that we had been treated to our own sneak preview of several of the coolest movies coming out in the future. Okay. I saw a lot of our vocabulary words there too, so make sure you know all those vocabulary words that you may have seen. So, the first question asks, what does reassembled mean? So we've got it up here in the passage, reassembled a landscape scene. We know that it means to build again, to come together again. And the prefix re equals to do over. So if we say to assemble over again, then that's to bring it together again. We've got, what does the word prehistoric mean, right? Prehistoric animals. So prehistoric means before history started, right? Before history began. And what does the prefix mean? Pre equals before. So before history makes sense. If you replace the prefix in preview with the prefix re, how would the meaning change? So we're going to change preview to review. So it goes from see before to see again. So it essentially goes from getting to be the first one to see something to being someone that has to see it again. Usually review means in order to look for mistakes, but you could just review it to look at it again in case you're having a test on it, like our vocabulary words. Can you use a prefix to determine the meaning of real? Why or why not? No. re in this case is not a prefix. It doesn't mean all over again, right? Real is the root word. Not something with a prefix. 3 examples of words that begin with re or pre. Okay. Reheat. Like leftovers. Preheat. Like the oven before you cook something. Pre-wash. Like to get a stain out. Or rewash. To like still get that stain out because it didn't come out in the first cycle. How about pre-treat? Again, getting some things out in the wash. Versus retreat, which means go back, run away, don't, engage. These don't mean, I like that these are the same, but then these ones have completely different meanings when you change them. There are a ton of words that begin with re or pre, and lots of them you can do what I did, which is sort of switch in between to do something before and then do something after. Let's see if you can come up with some. I would love to hear them eventually. So let's take a look. Today, we're gonna get our graphic sources. So this is a little bit different of a story, and so it's got a little bit different of a skill with it. Our story is special effects in TV or television and movies, and so it's talking about how do they create these special effects, and a lot of what the description is, or a lot of what the text is the steps or processes used to create these special effects. And so we're going to look at graphic sources, which we may have in a previous class called charts and graphs, because that's what it is. We've got graphic sources that are maps, timelines, charts, diagrams, and pictures with captions. These are often used in non-fiction courses, so science, math, social studies, right? In looking at things that are real or really exist, not like in reading where we have text or descriptions that are written out. Our graphic sources are going to be things that are easy to understand and see. They are some of my favorite because it gives you the image right away, and then you can determine based on the information they give what is happening. So if you take a look at the diagram for a miniature neighborhood, right? Assume this miniature is for something, a train yard, a special effects. It's giving you this key, which tells you what each of these geometrical shapes are. So the rectangles are houses, the little circles are trees, the parallel lines are streets, and the hills are these little triangles. So in order to determine what the diagram shows, you're going to look at both the title and the key, because they're where the information lies. So this diagram shows a miniature neighborhood diagram, essentially a map of how to lay everything out. The shape that represents a tree is a small circle. How many more houses than hills are there? So how many more rectangles than hills? Well, I can easily number my rectangles. This is what they do in neighborhoods anyway, so they can get their mail. So there are 20 houses, and there are 8 hills. So we would just do 20 minus 8, which gives us 12 more houses. Why would this diagram be helpful to special effects artists? Well, special effects artists can use this diagram to reassemble, right? They could use it to plan out the neighborhood. right? Reassemble a miniature after taking it down. What else can they do? Plan out their shots, right? We already have that. So, or reassemble. What prior knowledge? What did I already have to know? I'd have to know what a key is. They don't tell me specifically what a key is, and I'd have to know to look at the title, right? I have to know to look at the title to find my information. So these are the two things I need to know. And to look at the title. So that's super important to understand, because if you didn't, you might be really confused by saying, like, these are not houses, like rectangles aren't houses. Or you might not know what's happening here. You might think these are roofs or teepees or something. So as long as you know to look at the key and the title, you can actually determine a lot about a graphic source. So we're going to look at a bunch of graphic sources this week, because not all reading is paragraph form. There are different kinds of things to read. You can absolutely read a map, read a chart, read a diagram. You can, also read a poem, things that aren't necessarily text that we're used to all the time. All right, it is time for the first read. On page 17, you're going to see everyone's favorite SQ3R. Our SQ3R today is going to be very basic because this text doesn't have a ton of text. It has a lot of pictures, a lot of things you can maybe question, a lot of things you're going to have to look at maybe twice, but there's not a ton of text, so I think you're going to get the basic idea just by looking at it. So what's the topic of the text? The topic of the text is special effects. Now the title talks about that these are special effects for film and television. So the title of the text is Special Effects in Film and Television. This is again an excerpt from a much larger book where the gentleman, our author really did spill some more information, but this is about miniatures and landscapes and things like that. So it's about one particular part of our special effects. How is the text organized? It's sequential with a lot of diagrams and bold headings. So you can follow the procedure that they're taking to make these special effects by looking at what are the procedures or how does it go, what order does it move in. A picture or graphic included in the text. The picture that sticks out to me is the one on the very first page of it looks like an orangutan or a monkey or a gorilla. It's probably a gorilla. Of a gorilla that has like gears in its head. So I'm going to call it a gear gorilla. On the first page, it got me interested in thinking about King Kong and Planet of the Apes and all of these movies that are old but also now have had remakes, and how the special effects look really different from the original Planet of the Apes or the original King Kong to now, where it's like you could almost imagine King Kong being that big. But it really got me starting to think about special effects and even about how dated these special effects are that we're learning about, because special effects is one of those areas that are moving so quickly, that are really improving every single year. Even watching a movie that I thought was amazing, like Harry Potter, the first one, I thought it was awesome when it came out, but when you watch the 7th one or you watch something else that has like wizards and things, you're like, whoa, the older ones, the graphics are so bad. And now the graphics are so good, you can almost believe they're flying on brooms or that they're, fighting with wands. It's wild. So, 3 questions that I might have about the text. I don't know. How do you get a job in special effects? I think now it's probably more of a computer job. But what do you even study in order to be a special effects artist? What else could we ask? Like, how do they decide what to design? We'll call it special effects artists. Right? A lot of things are these things that people have never seen before. Right? I don't know what it looks like to fight with wands, or I don't know what it's like to be up against a 60-foot gorilla. So how does special effects artists decide what to design? And finally, how do they make it look so real? Even old movies with good graphics are still really, really awesome. I think about Alien. I mean, it was out in the 80s, and I still get scared when some of those aliens come popping out. So I just wonder, how did they, with very limited prior knowledge, make it look so real? All right, guys, it is now time for you to read. So take a look. There is a link to the read aloud from YouTube, or you can read in your textbook. Just read it. See what happens. See if you can figure out some things that are dated, like I said, or some things that they might continue to do today. Then write a quick summary. This one will be harder, I believe, because it's a fragmented story. There are lots of steps and diagrams, so you'll have to really come up with what you think is the flow, and then see if you can get the answers to your questions. If not, and you have your phone or your tablet or your laptop, look it up. I might look up some of these as well. And I hope to see you tomorrow.